today I am headed to the airport and then to Houston, Texas, because 9 days from today, a man is going to be executed. I looked up survival in the dictionary, and one of the definitions is to keep your body and your soul together. Well, in about 9 days, 8 days, March 19th, this young man's body and soul are going to come to a parting of the ways. And we are there to speak to him, to learn some life lessons from his impending death. You know, death teaches us about life. And our bodies will have a final destination somewhere on this earth. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. But the soul travels on. It continues on its journey. And so we are going to talk to this young man about the journey of his soul. One of the things that we've been talking about with this shoot, Iyanla and I have been talking about, along with the entire team of producers and crew, that this is not a story about crime and punishment. This is a story about choices and consequences. We all make choices every single day, and every single choice we make carries with it energy. And energy has consequences. You put your energy in one thing, you get a result. You put your energy in another thing, you get a different result. Energy has consequences. Life is about choice and consequences. And the soul's journey continues even when the body's journey ends. So we're traveling to Houston, Texas to raise those questions, to raise those ideas with a man who is going to be executed in 8 or 9 days. That's what this story is about. As the clock ticks down on your earthly life, how much thought have you given to your soul and your spirit? Seems like many times people at the end of their life ask the question, have I ever really lived? Did I ever really love? Seems like to me those are the only things that really matter. We'll find out what matters to this young man when we get to Texas and talk to him. Behind bars, on death row, as he watches and waits for the clock to tick, 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 tock on his life.
Damon or Occupy?
No, he's with...
And that's one of his pastors right
that's
there.
one of his pastors. That's not...
No, I know. They told
That's
me
the
not
pastor.
to film until we have
So
permission.
did you want me to...
You know, the guy at the gate said stop filming. So
Oh.
it's up to you guys.
Oh, we can't film. Not on the
he said
camera,
don't
but if
film.
you get
I'll
on
do
your
it.
phone,
Okay,
like
so
we're
now
talking-
go ahead with your update.
No, I'm just saying that the gentleman, the attorneys was saying...
You, Lloyd, back up.
Oh.
Right there.
Nice.
Okay. The attorney was just, the attorney was saying that Ray is thrilled that you're here, that he's very excited, and that this is like a blessing for him. That he's a big fan of hers. He knows all her books. He's read all her materials.
He was in my
Honey,
prison
see,
ministry.
this gonna be a
Telling you,
blessing
he
right
was
here.
in my prison ministry. But the class that does it, they're scattered, and we can't identify his name. But I know the name, Ray Jasper.
So that's why I'm so excited. All that anxiety's over now. Now I know. It's meant to happen.
We'll probably want to get that.
I do want to share with you that 10 days ago, I went to Texas I don't go to Texas lightly. As a brother, I am very conscious of my behavior in Texas. You know, when you're in Texas, you just better be conscious if you're a brother, really if you're anybody. I think there's a sign that I saw that said, if you kill somebody in Texas, we will kill you. Now, that is the truth. You kill somebody in Texas, we will kill you. And for sure. And Iyanla Vanzant and I and crew traveled to Houston, Texas, and then by car to neighboring Livingston, Texas, to meet with a brother on death row. His name is Ray Jasper. And back in the day, he committed a crime that landed him on death row for the last 15 years. And we met with him on Wednesday, 10 days ago. And 3 days ago, he was executed exactly 1 week after we left. And I can't even begin to tell you, I'm still processing what that experience has done in my soul. There were only 3 of us allowed to go into the prison. Let me just say that I've been in prisons before. I've shot in prisons, television shows, a number of times. I have a very good friend of mine who is in prison and is never coming home, and I've visited him many times. So I've gone through the procedure, for those of you who have never been in a prison, of surrendering all my valuables, being pat down, going through that process, and being locked up with the inmates, going through chamber after chamber after chamber to get into the belly of the prison where you literally are a prisoner yourself for the time that you're in there, and you feel it. Just going to visit somebody, you feel like you're a prisoner because of the process of entry. So I've been there. Never, however, have I been on death row. That's a whole other animal. And there we were, Iyanla Vanzant and I and the camera guy, who also, because we could only let 3 people in, was our audio guy. And anybody who is familiar with production knows that, usually your camera guy is not your audio, not your sound guy. But in this case, he was, because only 3 of us could go in there. And when we walked in, there are these little, you've seen them on television many times, these little stalls as big as a phone booth that you would see back in the day on the corner. That's how big these were, or how small they were, I should say. And we walked in, and he was standing in his, number 27. Waiting for us. They had already brought him in, and he was just standing there waiting. So we tucked Iyanla around the corner so he couldn't see her until we were ready to start. We had 1 hour. Then the gentleman, Mr. Robert, was counting down. Literally, he set his watch, and he was going to stop me at an hour. He was counting me down from 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes. So that hour was a pure hour to talk to this gentleman. So we're setting up, camera guy setting up, and I asked Mr. Robert, who was sort of our warden, if you will, while we were there for the media. There was another film crew a few stalls down from us in number 23, interviewing another death row inmate. We were in number 27. And I asked Mr. Robert if I could speak to him, to greet him, so it wouldn't just be, we walk up with cameras and then Iyanla starts talking to him. He said yes, so I went and picked up the phone. He was behind the glass. I picked up the phone and introduced myself and told him I was one of the producers and I would be working with Iyanla through this hour, passing her notes and sharing thoughts with her as she engaged in the conversation with him. And he said, okay. Very soft-spoken young man. And we did the interview. And when the interview was over, we were packing up. Iyanla, we tucked her back around the corner so that, because we had to all leave together. We were in this room, so the other camera crew finished first, and they waited for us. They watched us finish our interview because you can't just come and go as you please. We all came into there together. We all had to leave together. So we're packing up and about to leave, and he taps on the glass and motions for the cameraman to get me. And I went over to him, to Ray, and I picked up the phone again, and I'm looking into his eyes. He's looking into mine, and he says, when is this going to air? And I said, probably April. And when I said that, I knew that unless there was a stay of execution, that this brother wouldn't be here in April. He wouldn't even be here 7 days later. And I said, April. And he smiled, big smile. And I said, what was this experience like for you? What was this hour like for you? And he said, it was a blessing. And he smiled again. And then I said, thank you. And we hung up the phone, and we all left. Wednesday of this week, he was executed. And so this brother leaves behind not only a loving family who is grieving his loss and mourning his loss, he also leaves behind a victim and their family who is grieving the loss of their loved one as well. So I'm mindful of that. I am mindful of that. We went there for the purpose of his soul, not for the crime and punishment of this man. That was not our purpose. It was there for his soul and to help him prepare his soul for a transition. And that's what that meeting was about. That said, it is very eerie to look into the eyes of someone that you know is not long for this world. Very eerie. Very eerie to talk to somebody about the fact that they are not long for this world. Not unlike talking to someone who has a terminal illness, the distinction being that an illness is not somebody putting a needle in your arm and injecting a lethal combination of drugs. And he made it very clear that I do not go into this willingly. I am being executed. It was deep on so many different levels. And so I say all that to share that with you. I want to read some words that I read at my grandmother's funeral in 1997. And so although this was for her, I read it this morning from Mr. Ray Jasper. And it's called Back to You, Home. Back to You, Home, for my Grandma Aggie. Her name was Agnes. We called her Grandma Aggie. But this is for Ray this morning. This is what I read at my grandmother's funeral in 1997. Tears slide down grieving cheeks. Hearts here in this place are heavy in this after hour of loss. Questions long since asked and never asked are now themselves rested. I love yous, felt and seldom spoken, linger in the breeze of her departure. And we watch her. We know her. We need her. We had her. And we have her with tears sliding down the face of the greeting cheeks, the sunny smiles, the firm loving handshakes, and the holy hugs. Hearts there in that holy place are happy in that opening hour of welcome. The reception line is prepared for our mother, for our sister, for our grandmother, for our great-grandmother, for our aunt. Answers, long since elusive, are now themselves revealed. I love yous, felt and seldom spoken, leap in the breeze of her arrival. And our ancestors watch her. They receive her, for they know her. And they want her, because they need her. And they have her. I speak your name, Agnes Blair, Mom, Grandma, Aggie, and say to you that you have given love, and that you yourself have been loved. And I say thank you, for from you came my father, and so from him I came to this very hour with part of you and some of him all living inside of me. We celebrate you and set you free within our hearts and minds, for we know that you have joined the ancestors in watching over the ones left down here in this dark place, till we too are filled with the glow of the light in which you now shine, and are then gathered to our people, back to you, home. I read that for Ray Jasper this morning, because that brother's soul has gone to a different place. And wherever he is, I just pray that he shows up in the fullness and in the joy of the next chapter of his soul's journey, wherever that is for him.
Yes.
So I speak your name this morning, Ray Jasper, and usher you on to your next journey, your next chapter of your soul's experience today.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Wow.
Amen.
Wow.